So we're going to do some introductions here first. So I'm Lindsay. I've emailed with all of you probably multiple times by now. So you'll work with both myself and Kara.
Hi, I'm Kara Delameister. I'm the Knights of Distinction graduate assistant. So it'll be me and Lindsay talking shop with you guys and helping you get ready for that like capstone project at the end of the program.
So thank you guys for coming to the ePortfolio workshop. Kara and I are pretty excited for this. So in the past, we've done kind of single session ePortfolio workshops. Kara usually does those, and they worked well, but we weren't able to go as in depth with just the one-off sessions as far as actually getting you guys to actively work on the ePortfolios during that time. So that's the kind of the reason why we decided to do a series. By the end of it, you will pretty much have your ePortfolio complete. If you're not graduating this semester, that's still fine. You have time to add to it if that's what you want to do, if you want to show it to some of your professors for feedback or people you work with for feedback, that's always great too. If you are graduating this semester, this is a good chance to get this done. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but if you guys open up your folders here, we've given you some materials. We've got the syllabus, I guess, so to speak, for the series. It just lays out what we're going to talk about. Thank you, Karen. During each session, as well as what we'd like you to bring in for the following one. So you'll notice for next time, we're going to have you bring in a draft of one reflection so that we can workshop that and talk about content and how to build effective reflections for your ePortfolios. So we tried to design this for kind of both of those audiences. So if you are starting from scratch, never done a website before, you should find this useful and be able to develop your ePortfolio effectively. On the other hand, if you're a little more experienced, you have a website or you've worked with other programs or classes that had you do ePortfolios, we can work with that, and you can kind of adapt what you have for Knights of Distinction, develop your content that way. So I want to start kind of with the basics. I think this is essential for getting started with your ePortfolio, figuring out what platform you're going to use. We are going to go through that in more detail later. But if you open your folders on the left-hand side, you'll see a determining the purpose of your ePortfolio kind of worksheet here. So Kara and I are going to talk a little bit about the importance of each of these things, and then we're going to have you guys kind of work together, jot down like your intended audience, what you want to get out of this portfolio, purpose, things like that.
Yeah, so the ePortfolio is a really great tool for your job searches, for grad school applications, for scholarship and grant applications, anything like that. They can be used for whatever you need them to be. And something that we see a lot, and why we want to ask you these questions, is sometimes we see people focusing their ePortfolio towards us and towards the Knights of Distinction program and making us their audience and telling us what they've done in the program, or they're just talking about what they've done at UCF, but they don't talk about what they want to do next, and they don't have an audience outside of our program. So they're not talking to a job or to a grad school. I'm in the process, because I'm going to graduate from grad school this semester, so I am in the process of applying for positions teaching, and I had to redo my ePortfolio because now I'm not applying for grad school anymore, I'm applying for jobs, and so I have to tailor everything to make it all kind of point towards teaching. So it's a thing that you're constantly revising as your audience changes.
We're going to have you guys think about what skills you want to highlight for this. I think this is worth putting a lot of thought into. Obviously today we're going to have you jot down initially what you're thinking, but this is something you should continue to think about as we work through each session and as you start to engage with written reflections for Knights of Distinction. Because like Kara mentioned, as you're thinking about audience and what you're intending to do with this portfolio, what you're intending to do after you graduate, the skills you want to highlight might change a little bit, which is okay. So the cool part about the ePortfolio is that it is very kind of adaptable, and it's something that we encourage you to do with that. So again, think about skills that you have that you would want to highlight for employers. You can be a little bit forward thinking with it. So if you're earlier on in your college career and you're going to be engaging in certain experiences, you might even jot those down, like something to pay attention to in the future. What skills are you gonna, you want to take away from that experience, even if you don't know specifically what they are yet?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to market your ePortfolio. Some people just use it as a link on their LinkedIn, and a lot of people put their LinkedIn account onto the Wix so that they go back and forth, or not to the Wix, the ePortfolio, so that they can go back and forth. Some people put it on their resume. That's something you can also do. I have a link to mine on my resume. Some people put it on their business cards. So some people will put it on like the back of their business card and just show like, this is my ePortfolio. If you want more information, you can go there. So there's lots of different ways to use the ePortfolio. It's something that I'll sometimes mention in job interviews, just to let people know that if they want to access more information about me than they're seeing on my resume, they can.
A lot of grad school applications are asking for links to websites or ePortfolios now. And jobs for that matter, job applications. We're seeing that more and more. So keep that in mind too, of ways you might use it. And that kind of leads us into who you want to see this and who is actually going to see it. So you have your intended audience, the audience that you're kind of directing your reflections to and your skill development to, who you're talking to in the ePortfolio, which again will be outward facing depending on what you want to do. But then there's who is really actually going to see it. If you're putting this on LinkedIn, people outside of your intended audience are going to be seeing it, and that's going to come into play later on when we start talking about what artifacts to include and kind of the I guess, aesthetic design of the ePortfolio. So sometimes we've seen so many great portfolios in Knights of Distinction, but I think one of the most common things we have to make students aware of after they turn in the first draft will be like the artifacts that they're including. You want to make sure that they're obviously, professional. You're not including anything with like vulnerable populations, the children, the elderly. I think it's fine to include artifacts that are like, I guess, social in nature. So they might be pictures of you engaging in different, experiences. If you're part of a club or RSO and you're at an event, you have a picture from that. But you definitely want to always check to make sure that what is actually happening in those photos is something you would want your future employers to see.
And thinking about too, some people, like if you're doing, like business students sometimes will put like business proposals they've had to do for classes, and if you've worked with another company through your classes, they might be okay with you putting out that kind of information, but some might not. So those are things that you want to check on. Or like if you're in film, if you're in a creative industry, there are probably things that you want to share online, but other things that you don't want to put your own creative material out there. So it's just making sure that you're following copyrights for other people, but also like being aware of not having your content taken as well.
Yeah, like logos are a big one too.
Yeah.
So a lot of students will want to put, they're talking about a company they worked for, they want to kind of just have something to supplement that. They'll put the logo of the company.
They'll put the UCF
Sometimes-
logo or the Knights of Distinction logo, and those are copyrighted by them.
So sometimes you have to just make sure you do your research. Okay, so on that worksheet, we're going to have you also write down 3 short-term goals that you want to accomplish before you graduate, as well as 3 long-term professional goals. And this will be something that you'll work with and refer back to as you develop the ePortfolio, especially when we get into choosing your areas of focus, which will be in the next session. And Kara has a lot of awesome information about that. We have some useful strategies that you can use to help kind of connect some of the experiences or areas that don't seem connected yet. But I think as far as getting started with this now, try not to get like too focused on connecting like at this point, and just nail down what you want those, those skills and those focus to be.
So we've got a handout for you on the left side, back behind that worksheet we just did, the ePortfolio options guide. So this isn't necessarily a comprehensive guide. This doesn't mean that these are the only 3 things that you can use. I think all of these, all of the portfolio options that, or the platform options that we have for you guys are things that you can pay for. They have options for you to pay for them, but all of them are free. All the ones that we offer you have a free option that still provides you with a lot of, it's not like you log in and they're like, and that was it, that's the only free part. So they have a lot of different things that you can do that's part of like the free plan. So some of the options that we have for you are Adobe Spark, which is one that we're just kind of starting to work with. We've only had one person really do an Adobe Spark platform so far, but it was really cool. The thing with Adobe Spark is that instead of having like tabs, you have like one scrolling page, which they're really cool looking. They're built for like really cool, they've got lots of space for pictures, and they're built for kind of shorter, smaller reflections, which is totally fine with us. And they do a lot of, it's just a different format. They can be a little bit more difficult to work with than Wix. I haven't played with Adobe Spark as much, but it still has a lot of drag and drop features. And it's just one that we're not as familiar with, but we're definitely willing to play around with it if that's something that you guys want to do, we're willing to play around and figure out how to help you do Adobe Spark. It's just a really neat option. And then obviously Adobe has like all of the resources you can pay for, but if you just want to do a free thing, they have that available for you.
Yeah, I think with that one, so I signed up for an account and kind of did a, Knights of Distinction ePortfolio so I could learn about it. And it does, like Kara said, the drag and drop method is really convenient. With that one, as far as like, I know like instinct is that you want it to like, you want everything to look pretty right away. But with that one, it's definitely better if you get your artifacts up and your content in there and then format. Because with that one, if you playing with like the space, what you're doing with your space and you're moving things around, it sometimes can throw other things off. So I recommend just getting the content in there, getting your artifacts in there, worrying about formatting it later. It's not too hard to format once everything's in there.
Wix is the one that we see the most. And that's the one that we've used the most. My ePortfolio is a Wix ePortfolio. That doesn't mean that it's the best, but it just means that it's one that we've seen a lot. It has the same drag and drop editing, so it's pretty user friendly, similar to Squarespace. It's kind of built for people that don't know how to use like coding and that aren't computer engineers and that don't know how to do that kind of stuff. So it's really easy to work with. Sometimes you just have to play around with it. There's also a lot of resources available, like if you Google, how do I do this on Wix, usually there's a video for it, or there's some sort of like Yahoo Wiki answers type thing where someone else has already asked that question. So it's easy to figure out how to use. They have a lot of different capabilities. If you would like to link a blog or a portfolio, you can do that. If you would like to link your social media, you can do that. So it has lots of different things. There's a lot of different templates already on there. So one of the things that Wix has is like an artificial intelligence design option. So if you click on that, it asks you a couple of questions about what you want your page or what you want your site to be and what you want to use it for, and then it will build one for you. The only problem with that is that usually it builds you one that is one scrolling page, so if that's not the format you want, I wouldn't use that artificial intelligence. And then once you're in that artificial intelligence, if you want to do more customization, like you can't drag and drop, it only gives you this template and you can't really change anything, you have to get out of the artificial intelligence and go to the Wix editor and like do other things. If you want to like really make drastic changes to it, which is, we're going to send out instructions on how to do that, because that's a problem that we've seen, is people get stuck and they don't know how to get out of it.
I think it prompts you to pay at that point, like if you're.
With the artificial intelligence, it'll like try to get you to pay for stuff, and you don't want to do that. You don't have to pay for anything with Wix. So the only downside with Wix that I found so far is that the URL can be kind of long unless you want to pay for your own domain. So that's just something that's up to you. If you're only going to share the link digitally, then that's not really a big deal. If you want something to look nicer on your business card or your resume, that's something you can consider doing. You could also consider paying for a domain for like a little while and then getting rid of the domain once you've gotten your job or done whatever, but that's not something we would make you do. That's just something people have done. But Wix also keeps an archive of like a site history of just previous iterations. So if you start making a bunch of changes and you realize, oh no, because it automatically saves for you. So if you realize like, oh no, I hate everything I just did, you can go back and change all of it and like restore an old version of your site, which is something that I've had to do before. Yeah, so it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I think, like Kara said, I've used that one the most as well. I think just because the students have, so we tend to know more about that one. But I will jump back to Adobe Spark for a second. So Kara mentioned it's a scrolling feature, so you don't have separate pages necessarily that you're clicking on, but you can set it so that you can click on something and it will drop down to that area.
Wix, I would say, of these three, is the most customizable because Adobe and WordPress, you're both kind of stuck in a template, and you can put different things in it, but that is what your website's going to look like. With Wix, they have so many different things that you can do, and you can make it be whatever you want it to be. So Wix is by far the most customizable. So WordPress is another option we have. WordPress is obviously, if you've used WordPress before, it is more like blog and portfolio based. So that's what people mainly use it for. WordPress is a great option if you just want to use it for what it is, but WordPress can be really hard to work with if you don't know how to do coding and like how to mess with the templates on your own. So we haven't had anyone do a WordPress one yet. So it is an option that you can use, but it is by far like the most difficult platform of these three to work with. We've heard people using Weebly. We've had people use Weebly in the past, which is also a good website. UCF is just having issues with Weebly's server right now, so they tend to block Weebly if you're on UCF's internet. So that's just why we don't recommend it anymore, because they've had issues with people creating like spam websites and scam websites through Weebly, so they just kind of block it altogether.
But yeah, that said, if that's what you want to use, you can use it. So there are obviously lots of other platforms. It's fine if you want to work with those. I want to talk a little bit about kind of, I guess, the privacy factor with ePortfolios. So one that's not on here is Google Sites. I've used that a lot when I'm teaching composition courses. I used to have students make their ePortfolios with Google Sites, and it is a really good platform. That one has the feature where you can generate a link that only the people who have that link will be able to click on and see it, which is a nice feature of Google Sites. The drawback with that one is that you're limited with templates, so a lot of the ePortfolios or websites produced with Google Sites tend to look the same.
We have a student in the program who was very concerned about privacy and like sharing his link only to people that he wanted to have it, and it was just really because he originally was looking at his audience being just kind of a general, broad career audience. He is working in accounting right now, so he was just looking at different jobs in accounting, but now he wants to go to grad school for accounting. So his audience has changed to grad school, and he's talking about skills that he still wants to gain and how furthering his skills and his academics and his education. And so that's something that he wants to be able to share with grad school, but he doesn't want his employer to see. He wants that to be like only something that he's giving to grad schools. So that is something that we've had to work with him on and figuring out how to share a link privately. With Wix, we haven't figured out yet if there's a way to do like password protected or only people that have the link can see it. But with Wix, like I've had my Wix website for 2 years now, and if you Google my full name, you don't find it. It doesn't come up. You would have to go, I think you would have to dig through a lot of Google to find it. It doesn't come up right away.
Yeah, I remember talking with you about this. So there's a feature on the free version of Wix where you can like kind of adjust the search feature so that if someone like Googles your name, that's not going to be the first thing that pops up.
Because Wix has part of their things that you can pay for is like boosting it so that it is one of the first things that pops up, but it's not automatically going to be there.
Okay. So if you guys want to take a couple minutes here and log into the Canvas course, on the resources page in the Canvas course, I've included the links to these ePortfolios so you guys can kind of look at them as we're talking through here. So on the home page, go to the reflection capstone, the last one on there. Yeah, so it's the second page, resources. So we're going to look at the engineering one. Okay. So Kara and I are just gonna kind of talk through some of the features for the sample ePortfolios. You'll see on the web course there are a lot of different samples. All of them are great. These are just ones that we selected from like different majors, kind of have a different artifacts, things like that, so you guys can get an idea of the platforms and what they have to offer. So you'll see this one is a Wix ePortfolio. So Stefan's an engineering major. So what was interesting is he did a lot of work at Valencia, so before he got to UCF that he wanted to include as well. So he's got, so you'll notice at the top here, he's got his different pages laid out. So he's got the About Me section, which has basically his different jobs and experiences that he has participated in, which is how he wanted to do this version of the About Me page. Keep in mind, if you're using this for like grad school applications, this is probably going to look more like a personal statement rather than, I guess, like specific experience focused.
Something that I liked about Stefan doing this, can you scroll down a little bit more? Yeah. So he looked at all the different companies that he's already worked for, and then he's got this like your logo here thing, which could come off as a little cheesy, but I think is also a great way to market yourself. Like he's offering his services and his skills. So he's talking about his future goals and offering himself as a service.
So I think a feature that you'll see on his it's not as common as some of the other ones, was that he decided to use some different terminology for his areas of focus. So he uses projects, which he took this to some of the professors in his major and had them give him feedback as well. So his is designed kind of forward thinking, what grad school programs, what future employers are going to be familiar with as far as the terminology he's using. So it's still, there are areas of focus, but he did it project-based, and then he adapted a lot of the content from his leadership reflection and his high-impact reflection for content on these pages.
And that was something that we talked with him about, because normally the reflections that we ask you to do are very like skill-based, and we want you to reflect and connect your experiences, and we're looking at areas of focus that are kind of talking about multiple experiences, and that's just kind of typically what ePortfolios do, but this is where your audience really comes into play, because for Stefan, that was not what engineers wanted to see. They want to see the projects that he's done and the work that he's doing in his field, and that was more important. And so obviously we don't want you to do something that's not going to work for your field.
And sometimes, these are done early in your careers, and you might not specifically know that yet, which is obviously fine. But if you do have an idea of what the audience wants to see, what your audience wants to see, definitely let us know.
So some people like to include their resume as like a page on their ePortfolio, and that's totally up to you. Some people like that, some people don't. I just have mine included as like a button, a download button. Stefan has both. I would recommend that if you're going to do it as a page like this, that you have a download button so they can actually like print your resume if they want to. But something that's great about this is he gets to showcase like just his work experience and the things that he wants to pull off of his resume. So you can use it as a way to show the really important things from your resume that you want to highlight. And just be careful when you're doing your resume to not include like your the one that's going on your website. You don't want to include like your phone number or your address or anything like that. Just include your email so that people can get in touch with you but not stalk you. That's really important to consider. Oh, and make sure that if you're putting any sort of document on your ePortfolio or online for people to access, make sure that it's a PDF, not a Word document. Just because one, PDFs look a little more professional because they're polished and they're done. They're not like an editable document, and it's also just important not to put editable documents out on the internet because you don't want people to like mess with your materials and then it still looks like it's yours.
And I think thing with PDFs is it will retain a formatting, obviously, as a PDF. So if you upload it as Word or something, that's probably all going to get messed up depending on what version. So we're going to get into artifacts later, but I think as you're looking through these over the next couple of sessions, with the sample ePortfolios. I think it's useful to look at what kinds of different artifacts students have included. So on Stefan's, he's got a lot of videos, he's got links to articles that were written about him or that he wrote. Obviously, artifacts are going to take many, many different forms depending on your major, your area of focus. But it's just nice to be aware of what you could include if you have those.
Yeah, so Annabelle was actually a student that came in and met with us, and we talked and kind of helped her develop her areas of focus. Because she had communication and leadership, she knew those were things that she wanted to do, but she wanted to show some of the other experiences that she had, and we ended up helping her decide that, like, oh, all of these experiences involve mentorship, so that should be your third area of focus. But these are the three things that worked for Annabelle and her audience.
A lot of hers were focused on like on-campus involvement and tutoring. So she worked at the Writing Center. She wanted to tie in. She was a member of a sorority, and she wanted to tie in her work with the sorority here. And she found an interesting way to do that after I think it was a couple, 2 or 3 iterations of it. So she worked in the Writing Center where she's helping students kind of think about audience and determine who they're talking to and using different, I guess, rhetorical strategies for that. And it turns out that her focus in the sorority, or her role in the sorority, was involved with helping market the sorority. So she was involved with creating like flyers and distributing them and things like that. So she focused in on audience and how she was able to, develop skills where she's communicating with different audiences. And a lot of her, you'll notice if you read through some of the reflective content, she spends a lot of her time focusing on how she was able to adapt those skills to different situations and apply them in different areas. So I think that was an interesting way to approach it.
And her focus was a lot of, if you read the little description on her first page, she was showing that she wants to work in social change, and so she talks a lot about how marketing and communication plays into her wanting to help with social change issues and work in that career field.
Yeah, and you'll notice with hers, the artifacts are more visual. She's got a lot of pictures on here, stuff like that.
Which again is all about your audience. For Annabelle's, this worked really well. For Stefan's, it worked better for him to have videos and show the engineering that he was actually doing and how it worked. I like the pictures for Annabelle's too, because I think it makes it really personal. Like right when you log in, and especially with this bright color and with Annabelle's picture, it makes it look like this is Annabelle's website, and then she has all of these pictures of her doing the different things that she's talking about in here, which just kind of personalizes it, which I really like, especially for this field.
Too.
Yeah, and for sociology field, that's something that can be really important and works for that audience. For engineering, it might not be so important to personalize it, but that just depends on your audience. For Annabelle's, it really worked for her.
We're going to look at the English one, Sarah Drazada's. I wanted to point this one out because this is the one that was created with Adobe Spark. And I thought it was really well done, and I think we both enjoyed this one. So you'll see it's got the scroll feature, so you do, it transitions into each one. I don't think this one is set to navigate to each section, but you can't, it is each thing. And I think, yeah, with her, some of her artifacts, her English major, and she used this to apply to different grad programs.
So a couple of things that we, oftentimes when we're reviewing your portfolios, I will tell you to put sort of the big information that you really, really want your audience to know right at the front, and you want that to be kind of the first thing they read. Because, I mean, the truth of the matter is not all employers are going to read your ePortfolio, and especially if you're applying like through the first round of a job, the thing that they're looking at is your resumes when they're doing an interview. They're not going to look at everything that you give them. They're just going to look at your resume and see if you make it to the next round. And then once you're in the next round, your ePortfolio can be the thing that makes you stand out. And at that time, they'll probably go through it more extensively. But even then, you want to make sure the bulk of the main information is kind of up front and present, so that if they only look at one thing, they read the most important paragraph.
And I think it is worth thinking about. So not every career or graduate program that you go into is going to have web development as the main focus. So it is kind of understood that not everyone is going to have the best strategies for making it look, super efficient. So it is worth noting that. And also when you're to the point when someone's looking at the portfolio, a lot of times students will tell us they've already been through interviews, they made it through the first round, right into the second, that's when they're going to look at the ePortfolio. So you do have, obviously if it's on something like LinkedIn, maybe this is more of a first impression, which is something you would want to think about. If you're using it for a more intentional audience, they're basing it on other things than just this.
And one of the main reasons that we ask you guys, or that we offer workshops like this, and that we offer ourselves to meet with you and to have you send us your ePortfolios early before the deadline, is so that we can go through multiple iterations of the ePortfolio with you. Because when you're putting together an entire website like this, it's so much content and so much information that you're gonna miss stuff like a design flaw like this. Like, that's not something you might have thought about because you're putting so much information together. And if you don't have a web developer background, you're not thinking about all of those things necessarily. And we don't even think about everything. We're not going to catch every single thing, but we as outsiders are going to be able to see it a little bit differently than you will, because it's your content, and we can help you through little things like that might look a little bit better if you change it all the way down to like working on wording and how to phrase things better for your audience.
So I have some experience being on job search committees where I'm looking at people's portfolios. And I think my approach to it is, if I've been in an interview and I've read through, obviously, their application package, I'm looking at what can I find there that wasn't part of all of those things. So I'm skimming the parts that I already know, and then I stop and really focus in on the things that weren't included. Specific examples of projects they worked on where they were adapting their skills to different situations, what they learned, maybe challenges that they encountered and how they overcame them. Okay, so this is brief. I just want to point out that the rubric is in your folder. This is how we evaluate the ePortfolios for Knights of Distinction. So I've printed you guys off a hard copy so that you can have it, you can reference it, bring it with you if you want. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this. So you're basically evaluated in 5 categories. You've got the personal statement, areas of focus, resume, communication, and then digital formatting. There's a lot of flexibility in here as far as, we're not telling you what areas of focus to choose, you choose them. How you want to format your resume and display that is up to you. It's more what you need to include, so that you're just keeping that in mind as we go through each session. Anything?
Yeah, I will say the biggest areas that end up, like the hardest areas are kind of the personal statement and areas of focus, obviously, because that's where a lot of your content is. And then like digital formatting is one of those things that like most everybody gets 4 or 5 out of 5 on digital formatting, unless we can tell that you absolutely did your ePortfolio the day before you turned it in. Like there's always those ones that it's like you threw this together last night and you turned it in, and like the submission time is 3 in the morning, and we can see that, and we see you. And so usually digital formatting is not a huge deal because we want these websites to look like you, so it's not like we're not looking for anything in particular, we're looking for the fact that you put in time and effort and thought into what your ePortfolio looks like.
And I will say, so you'll notice that we're going to have you produce some reflections. That's also something that you do as assignments for Knights of Distinction. So being part of this workshop gives you a little bit of an advantage there because you're producing content, you're producing the reflections for this workshop, and you can submit those as your reflections for the summative assignments in Knights of Distinction. If you draft those early and you want feedback, submit them, we'll look at them, we can give you feedback. We still will anyway, even if you're submitting them as you progress through this workshop, we always give feedback and help you direct it to the portfolio if that's the focus.
And when we get your ePortfolios, if you submit it to us early, we'll obviously give you feedback earlier as much as we can.
Yeah.
And then even after you've submitted it, and even if you're graduating and you're done with the program and you got a 25 out of 25, we will still give you feedback on it because we want these to be things that you're actually using outside of this program. And so we want to make sure that we're giving you the most feedback and allowing you the opportunity to make this portfolio the best thing that it can be.
And I know some of you mentioned wanting to, to maybe use this for fellowships or grants opportunities. So even if you're not graduating this semester, if you want to submit it before the April 8th deadline, Kara and I can give you feedback this semester on it so that as you get to the point where you're using it for those things, you have as much feedback and chance to revise as possible.
Yeah.
And you'll definitely be revising throughout the series as well. So just something to keep in mind. So before we finish up, for the next session, that's going to be February 27th. So you'll finish getting that structure laid out if you don't finish that up today. And then you'll bring in one draft of a reflection. So I recommend looking back at your initial inventory, looking at a milestone that you're a little further along with that you completed, and do the written reflection for that milestone. Go to the assignments page for that milestone, and you'll see instructions, list of prompts. Obviously, that's open. You can write about what you want to write about. But there are some suggestions if you want to get ideas. So you'll do that. Again, this is just a draft. We're going to work with it. I just want you to have something to work off of next time. And you'll bring in your hard copies with you. Okay, so next time, we'll still have the presentation portion, but it will be much shorter. And we'll be actively workshopping those reflections and starting to build out the content for the portfolio. All right, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for coming.